All right, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the water edition of our Western Canada EU Connect series. My name is Jeanette Jackson. I'm the CEO of Foresight Canada, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all today. Of course, I'd love to begin with some land acknowledgements. With gratitude and respect, we acknowledge the lands on which Foresight operates are the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Lee, are you progressing the slides okay? Perfect. So a little bit about Foresight before we dive into a great conversation today. We are one of the largest clean tech innovation accelerators globally, and our mandate is really to accelerate the growth and impact of clean tech ecosystems across Canada and globally through partnerships and conversations like these. To date, we have supported over 840 clean tech ventures from Canada through our accelerator programming, over 150 industry partners through our industry capital and export programs. And of course, when we consolidate the impact of these efforts, we've helped our ventures secure over $1 billion in capital. They've secured over 325 million in revenue and helped create over 6,800 green jobs. Our domestic and international engagement includes collaboration with over 2,000 stakeholders globally. International exports are a key component to growing the Canadian clean tech innovation economy, and the same goes for Europe and a lot of our other international partners who would like to access Canadian innovation, and of course, where Canada would like to source European innovation. And it's events like these that are critical to connecting our world-leading water innovators with the European market. Climate change is a problem without borders, and water is no exception. Half of the world's population will be living in water-stressed areas by 2025, according to the World Health Organization. Clean water is fundamental to human well-being, economic prosperity, and environmental health. As a country rich in water resources, we must work together to protect those resources at home and export this innovation internationally. Foresight's water sector initiative, Water Next, brings together stakeholders from across the water innovation ecosystem to accelerate the commercialization and adoption of these incredible technologies for the world's most pressing water challenges. So thank you all for being here today to explore the water market opportunities in Europe. I'm excited to learn how we can unlock these market opportunities and hope you discover potential partnerships along the discussion today. This event and series of events, there's another one tomorrow, could not be possible without our incredible partners. So on behalf of the entire Foresight team, I'd like to thank our partners and supporters from the province of British Columbia, ICEP Portugal Global, the Consulate General of France in Vancouver, the Consulate General of Ireland in Vancouver, the Consulate General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Vancouver, and the Consulate General of Portugal in Vancouver, the Consulate General of Switzerland in Vancouver, Hub Brussels, the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada West, and the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Canada West. We do have a pretty full agenda today, so I know it's up there on the screen. Of course, I'm here giving some opening remarks. I'm going to be delighted to introduce our next two speakers as well. We're going to dig into a really robust conversation with a panel of experts and thought leaders from each of these regions from a business development and relationship building perspective. And then we're going to have breakout rooms so that people can really connect and have meaningful conversations. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce you to the Honorable Bruce Ralston, Minister of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources. Minister Ralston, over to you.
Good morning to everyone in British Columbia, Canada, and across Europe. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that here in Vancouver, British Columbia, I'm speaking to you from the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'm happy to have this opportunity to speak with you today. As you may know, British Columbia, just like Europe, has felt the impacts of climate change. Within the last year, we have experienced extreme heat, forest fires, flooding, and disruptions to our supply chains. We understand the urgency for action. What has become clear to me is that clean tech represents the opportunity to grow our economy while achieving our climate goals. The two focus topics of today and tomorrow, water tech and agri-tech, are two aspects of clean technology that represent an enormous global opportunity. British Columbia has fostered the development of a world-leading clean tech ecosystem with strengths in water tech, agri-tech, clean transportation and fuels, and a variety of other clean energies. British Columbia is a great place for clean tech because we have strong foundations with supportive policies, a diversity of natural resource and industries that are potential customers for our clean tech businesses, and world-class universities and researchers. With an average of 98% of our electrical generation coming from clean or renewable sources, British Columbia is the cleanest jurisdiction in Western North America. BC Hydro, a Crown corporation owned by the government and people of British Columbia, delivers power to 95% of the province, generating the majority of this power from its clean hydroelectric resources. British Columbia is a home to a diversity of natural resource industries such as forestry, mining, natural gas, agriculture, and fisheries, representing important customers for our innovators. Our climate plan, named Clean BC, is an ambitious plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. The breadth of support for policies like BC's carbon tax provide regulatory certainty for companies and innovators. The low carbon fuel standard is another long-standing policy which requires fuel providers to lower the carbon intensity of transportation fuels over time. We also provide a range of incentives that are helping to reduce emissions from vehicles to homes and buildings and attract new technology investment to British Columbia and to build a stronger economy. The British Columbia government is a champion for clean tech. We continue to invest in clean tech through government programs that support clean tech innovation. British Columbia's Innovative Clean Energy Fund has committed over $100 million to support pre-commercial clean energy technology projects, research, and development. We have supported industrial wastewater treatment technologies, artificial intelligence tools for water treatment plants, and technologies to desalinate seawater and treat waste industrial salt water. For agri-tech, some of the technologies we have supported include robotics and sensors to detect plant stress patterns, and artificial intelligence and machine learning to reliably assess the carbon content of soil. A key to our success has been strong partnerships with innovators, accelerators, the federal government, municipalities, and Indigenous communities. And within the last year, the combined funding of $105 million from the province, the Government of Canada, and Shell Canada, we launched a new Centre for Innovation and Clean Energy. The centre will support rapid scale-up and commercialization of energy technologies. Through these programs and policies, we have positioned British Columbia as a leader in bringing our clean tech to the world, helping us meet our ambitious climate goals, empowering us forward into a cleaner, prosperous, low-carbon future. Working collaboratively with consulates and innovators, we can collaborate and create a broader global market for water tech and agri-tech. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's session. I look forward to the discussion ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Ralston. Very much appreciate your words, and there's so much that we can build out in the follow-on conversations from some of the areas that you highlighted. Next up, I would like to welcome Dr. Melita Gabriek, EEU Ambassador to Canada, to give some opening remarks.
Good day, everyone. Dear Minister Ralston, dear Minister Callan, the Honorable Consul General of France, Ireland, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Switzerland, dear representatives of the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada West and the Italian Chamber of Commerce Canada West, dear participants. It is my great pleasure to be opening this important event that is taking place at a crucial time when Europe and Canada are looking to strengthen their cooperation to build resilient supply chains and partnerships with like-minded and trusted partners, including in their pursuit of the shared climate action goals. The extreme weather events that we have unfortunately been witnessing around the world, including in Europe and in Canada, and in particular last year here in BC, are reminding us of just how crucial it is that we make the long in the making shift to clean energy. Russia's aggression against Ukraine and the energy crisis it caused added an additional urgency to our clean energy transition. Here, I would like to mention some important initiatives that the EU is undertaking to ensure a green transition in Europe, and that also offer avenues for further cooperation with our Canadian partners. The EU Innovation Fund, with a budget of 1.5 billion, will finance technologies for renewable energy, energy-intensive industries, energy storage, and carbon capture, use and storage. Horizon Europe, the EU's new 95.5 billion euros research and development program, is the biggest research and development program in the world. It is already open to Canadian researchers, and the EU and Canada are soon to start formal negotiations for Canada to join as associated member, which will allow Canadian researchers and institutions to cooperate closely in this program. The ambitious European Green Deal is putting the EU on a path of a resource-efficient and competitive economy. And it is creating new markets for clean technologies and products as well. And the EU is already Canada's second largest clean tech export market after the US. It is also the world's third largest importer of clean technology products, worth about 148 billion Canadian dollars. The EU-Canada Free Trade Agreement, CETA, makes it considerably easier for Canadian and EU clean tech companies to do business together. The agreement eliminates all tariffs of clean tech products and gives EU firms access to procurement opportunities at the level of provinces and municipalities. It simplifies labor mobility so that Canadian and European clean tech companies can more easily recruit professionals from both sides. We want to see more cooperation between our research innovation institutions and our businesses in Europe and in Canada. To this end, we organized last year's Canada-EU workshop on CETA opportunities in clean technology that brought together over 600 innovators, SMEs, industry associations, and government representatives of the clean tech sector. And this year, in the fall, Canada will organize a Canada-EU Clean Tech Summit. Today's event offers an excellent platform for fostering new partnerships and business opportunities for European and Canadian clean technology businesses and institutions. And here I would like to thank the organizers, Foresight BC's Clean Tech Accelerator, and all the partners for putting together this interesting and ambitious program, and wish you a productive and fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gabriek. And with
Good day, everyone.
With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to our very own Hilary Travis. She is the director of BC, and she's going to moderate our panel this morning. So Hilary, excited to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Jeanette. And I just want to thank Minister Ralston and the government of British Columbia again for all their support for today's event, and for Minister Ralston joining us and his advocacy in the clean tech space, and also in international relations for British Columbia. It's really important to help support events like these. So like Jeanette mentioned, I am Hilary Travis. I am the director of British Columbia at Foresight Canada. I am very excited today to have this panel with me. just a little bit of information. So after this panel, you guys will get the opportunity to join breakout rooms and ask questions one-on-one. So if we don't touch on something directly in this panel, you'll have the opportunity to ask one of these or all of these people afterwards. So I'm very pleased to welcome Gregory Freeman from Invest Vancouver, João Perez from the Portuguese Water Partnership, Stefan Bergsma from the Netherlands Water Alliance, and Armando Quazzo from SMAT, Grupo Society Metropolita Aqua Torino, and I apologize if I butchered that, and David Avery from Switzerland Global Enterprise. I invite each of you to kind of give a bit of an update or a presentation a bit about your organization, water tech in your country, and a little bit about yourself as well. So passing it over to Gregory Freeman first from Invest Canada or Vancouver.
2 years of Zoom, and I'm still working on getting myself unmuted when we start. Thanks very much. So I'm from Invest Vancouver, where I'm the senior economist. We are a new regional economic development leadership service. In other words, we're a tiny little division of Metro Vancouver. Delighted to talk to you about water. What we do specifically for us is that our role within the government, and we could move to the next slide. We have sort of three functions within Invest Vancouver. We do research and policy. That's my area, where we identify regional strengths and gaps and how to improve them. Then we figure out how when it comes to that improving them part, that's where the collaboration comes in. We bring people together. We represent 21 cities, an electoral district, and a treaty First Nation, as well as want to partner with industry, education, labor to figure out what we can do. And then our other key component is investment attraction, which works both directions. That's both incoming investment, but also in creating partnerships, which I think is particularly important today in terms of collaborating with other folks. On our next slide, you'll see that what we're focused on as an economic development service is our key regional industries that are export oriented. We're primarily interested in being additive to the regional economy, so we're not displacing existing firms. And again, that fits well with clean tech and water. If you see on the next slide here, what we're speaking to you about today is one element of this, which is the green economy. And in the green economy, which is a catch-all really for reducing carbon intensity, reducing environmental impact, using resources more efficiently, producing less waste. Water, or at least water tech, is front and center in that. But water tech is something that is largely overlooked within our region. We get a lot of rainfall. We have reliable water provision, really great water, actually. We have wastewater treatment that functions properly. And so when you tell people that, hey, I'm looking at the water industry in Vancouver, you get a lot of pushback. You're like, why? Why would you be doing that? We got interested in it because we were surveying water-based. We were looking at clean tech in the region, and we kept encountering water-based firms. And so the question is, when we look at them, it's like, okay, so we have something here. Well, why here? Why not? This is an export-oriented industry. Why not Calgary or Portland or Torino or Shenzhen? But there's a lot going on here for really an outgrowth of our resource economy that Minister Ralston talked about, whether it's mining and oil and gas, pulp and paper, which creates a need for industrial wastewater treatment. So we have a real strength there, as well as the innovative tech being taken from university to commercialization through accelerators like Foresight. And it also includes things like our hydrogen sector, where they're developing membranes that are useful in aspects of hydrogen, but they also apply to things like removing salts from water. So our strength here is really the talent and innovation ecosystem and a fair amount of government support. If we move to the next slide, what you can see is that a quick sort of overview of what we have within our region. We've really got what you see as our strengths in the resource recovery, industrial wastewater treatment, as I already mentioned. And then if you combine digital solutions and the sensors and analyzers, that really plays to our strengths in AI, machine learning, data science, et cetera, within the region. And so we're excited about this because these things all fit with a global trend towards adapting to global warming, preventing it if we can in terms of greening of the economy, decarbonization, greater efficiency, moving toward a circular economy, and then finally digitalization and data analytics. All of these trends mean that there's a lot of opportunity here. You can look at water tech as we do, and what we see is that there's a lot of risk involved in water. How do we get rid of these hard to remove pollutants? How do we provide clean drinking water to places that are in remote communities, for example, where that we haven't been able to in the past? How do we get things like microplastics out of the water? There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of risks there, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And when we look at the Vancouver market, and by that I mean the greater Vancouver market, what we see is there's a nascent water sector here where there's a lot of really exciting pieces, but we don't really have a coherent industry cluster like you would see when you look at Netherlands or some of the other places. And I think that we're on the road to getting there, but working so that we can have more opportunities for collaboration, both within the sector and most importantly, between this sector and other countries, I think is really the way forward. We're right in the middle of looking at this right now. And if we look at the final slide there, just give you a shout out for where you can find our work and research. We've already got reports up on the clean tech sector, more clean transportation. The one specifically on water will be out later next month. With that, I hope to see you in the breakout rooms where I can talk to some more of your questions. Thanks, Hillary.
We're going to hand it over to Portugal.
Hello, good morning. Pleasure to be here. For practicalities' sake, I don't know if you can hand over control of the slide motion to me. If not, we'll do the best we can. Let me see if I can switch slides. No, I can't. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind invitation. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is João Pires. Sounds awful, but it's Portuguese for John, so that simplifies matters. On this slide, I'll give you 1/3 of the executive summary of my presentation, which is the Portuguese Water Partnership is 3 times 100%. The first 100% is 100% focused on water. But for us, water is a fairly wide concept in the sense that it encompasses not only urban water supply and wastewater management services, but also water resource planning and management, water for irrigation, hydroelectricity, transition and coastal waters. So everything except salt water in the high oceans and in the polar glaciers, because we have none of those. Then we can move forward in terms of slides. Thank you. We are a cluster association, which is built on what we would refer as a still fairly recent experience in the context of the integration of Portugal in the European Union. There was a significant amount of investment in bringing water resource management and water services up to scratch. But the key message here is that if you just throw money at a problem, you're not being very efficient in addressing it, is that this was done in tandem with important restructuring of the governance of water, both at an institutional, a political, and in terms of water utilities themselves. So these two things, let's say the soft side of it, the governance side of it, and the hard side, the financial and the engineering side of it, walked hand in hand. Here we have some charts showing the improvement in our drinking water quality, in the degree of adequate wastewater treatment. Also, currently we're the country in the, I think in the EU with the greatest number of blue flags, which for us are essentially are fundamental. So on the basis of this, we managed to also develop an interesting cluster of companies that do the upstream stages of the of this value chain. So if you can move forward on our slide. Okay, we're 11 years old. Okay, this is my favorite slide, which is we have more than 100 members. The second 100% that I wanted to say is we try to be 100% inclusive. That's why we are a partnership. I'll tell you a little bit about other European partnerships that we collaborate closely with. We have 4 types of members. So the first one is enterprises, both public and private. These go from large firms, I mean, for the scale of the Portuguese economy, naturally, to very niche, micro specialized firms. That's the majority of our members. But we also have universities and research centers, also other professional associations and non-government associations. And finally, we also have as our members the key agencies in the Portuguese government that are either part of the governance model for water in Portugal or are instrumental to the internationalization of the Portuguese economy. And ICEP Portugal Global, which was one of the supporting institutions, is just an example of that, which is our Foreign Trade and Investment Office. Which brings me to my third 100%, which should be in the next slide. Yes, which is finally, we are 100% focused on promoting the internationalization of the Portuguese water cluster. Obviously, the vast majority of this will be the business internationalization, i.e. in commercial projects, in projects overseas. We give a lot of attention to initiatives financed by multilateral financial institutions, namely the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, and so forth and so forth. But we also give attention to 2 other dimensions of internationalization. One is transnational partnerships when it comes to research, development, and innovation initiatives, namely in the context of Horizon 2020, nowadays Horizon Europe, which Madam the Ambassador just mentioned in her intervention. And thirdly, we also work closely with the Portuguese government in supporting policy dialogue, what we would call political institutional cooperation between Portuguese government agencies and politicians and other governments around the world. Here, these balloons, I mean, literally you can find a Portuguese guy, although we're not that many, under every conceivable rock. But to simplify it, we have, I would say, 3 key areas of geographical focus. One is sub-Saharan Africa, not only in the former Portuguese colonies of Angola and Mozambique, but also in adjacent countries like Botswana, Namibia, Malawi, Tanzania, and so forth. A second one is in North Africa. So from Morocco to Algeria to Tunisia and so forth. And the third one is naturally also Latin America. Okay. So having said that, as the balloons show, we have such a diversity of members that, I mean, some of them do business in Canada, a couple do business in the US and other, geographies. Okay, I think we can move forward. Okay, I'll stop here because I'll tell you a little, I won't go through the next slides, which you can then see offline. For brevity's sake, what the next slides do is show a couple of examples of interesting, innovative initiatives that are taking place in Portugal or with Portuguese technology. I just say that as a sort of executive summary, I would say that the Portuguese market per se is a relatively small market, but it has increased in its degree of sophistication over the last few decades, and therefore there's a welcoming environment for new ideas. there is particular appetite for opportunities to do what I would call triangular partnerships, which is something between, could be a Canadian business, a Portuguese company, and a third player in Brazil, which is a market which has a totally different scale and where perhaps specific know-how on a Portuguese company, including language, knowledge of the market, could be potentially helpful. The same thing for sub-Saharan Africa or Northern Africa. Another recommendation that I would say, that I would make is, you mentioned Water Next as the network that you have in place in British Columbia. I would encourage you guys to get acquainted and get in touch with a network that we belong to, which the Secretariat is managed by our Japanese counterpart, which is the Japan Water Forum, which is a network of partnerships like the Netherlands Water Partnership, the French Water Partnership, the Germans, the Swiss Water Partnership, the Korea Water Partnership, and we don't have a partnership there from Canada. And it's an interesting forum for exchanging experiences. Finally, I don't have a commercial interest. I'm not involved in the organization. I'm going to be there anyway, which is the International Water Association World Water Congress, which is taking place in Copenhagen this September, where I think it's a good investment, a good initiative to have a high return of being there 4 or 5 days. Because, I mean, coming out of this pandemic, there's a strong appetite, I think, amongst everybody to meet new people, to interact in person and get business up and running once again. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Joao. Moving over to the Netherlands and Stefan.
Yes, Hillary, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here, and good morning to everybody in Canada, and good afternoon if you're joining from Europe. My name is Stefan Besma, and I work for the Dutch water technology cluster called Water Alliance, and you can compare us a little bit, of course, with Water Next, or also with JAO, with the Portuguese water partnership. So we are the cluster network organization for the Dutch water technology sector, and we are not water broad. So our real focus, or our main focus, is on water technology, so really on processes and technologies in the field of water treatment. So we are not active in the field of delta technology. Of course, the Netherlands is also very famous for that, but we are not active in dikes or dredging and that kind of activities. It's really water technology. And today I will tell you something very shortly about, well, the Water Alliance and also about the Water Campus. You can see the logo in the top of the slide, which is our innovation ecosystem on water technology in the Netherlands. So next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, so as mentioned, we are the network organization for the Dutch water technology sector. We have around 110 members. 90% of them are small and medium-sized enterprises, and that's also really why we are alive, I would say, because these smaller entities, they can need some support in mainly business development. And if you compare the Dutch water sector to, for example, the French one or the Spanish one, we don't have really big players like a Veolia or a Suez. The real characteristic of the Dutch water technology sector is that we have a lot of smaller players. And well, as mentioned, we really focus on business. So we try to get more business for our members. And we do that via all these activities you can see on this slide. So matchmaking, business development, and we all do networking and promotion activities. So to make that a little bit more concrete, we go to trade fairs, for example, with our members. We connect them to partners, end users, or projects in the Netherlands, but also outside of the Netherlands. And we organize a lot of events where we try to connect the Dutch water technology sector, but also to connect the Dutch water technology sector with the water sector abroad, so globally. Then what is also good to mention is that we as Waterlines, we are part of the innovation ecosystem called Water Campus. You can see the picture there. It's not, you cannot see it that well, but what is good to mention is this whole innovation ecosystem we have in the Netherlands on water technology. So with this system and all the services and facilities which are part of that, you can go from a water technology ID from scientific research to a market-ready product. And all those, as mentioned, facilities and services are here in the Netherlands to support a company or a innovative ID. And we as Waterlines, we are active in this last part of this cycle. So that's the business part. But there are also two other managing partners of this ecosystem. One is a well-known scientific research institute called WETSUS. So their new breakthrough water technology ideas are developed, and there are a lot of PhD projects on that end. And the other partner is the Center of Expertise Water Technology, which is an applied research organization where you can test and validate your innovative technology. So there, for example, we have we have 6 different demo sites where companies can test and validate their technology. Then maybe to make the bridge a little bit to how we can connect Canadian organizations to Europe. Well, you can also see here international cooperation. We have a big international network. So not only we have a big network in the Netherlands, but also outside of that, and we can connect Canadian organizations to, well, as mentioned, possible clients, but also cooperation partners, in the Netherlands and outside the Netherlands. What we can also do, of course, is we can connect you to this innovation ecosystem. So there we can connect you to demo sites, testing locations, to funding, and to all kind of business support services we provide. And of course, we are focusing on the Dutch water technology sector, but we are also helping the Dutch water technology sector by connecting them to possible partners in Canada. And what we do, and that's on the next slide, is that we, as mentioned, we also organize all kind of international events. And one of them is actually happening this September. It's the European Water Technology Week. It's from the 19th till the 22nd of September in Leeuwarden, which is in the northern part of the Netherlands. And well, we try, let's say, to get the whole water sector, the global water sector, to the Netherlands. In 2018, we had our first edition, and as you can see, we had more than 1,000 participants from a lot of countries. In 2020, unfortunately, due to COVID, it was not possible to organize it, but now we expect to organize it again and to have more participants than in 2018. It is a conference and it is a trade fair networking floor in one, so you have both aspects, and it is really for all actors in the water sector, so from governmental organizations to solution providers to end users who have a water related challenge. That can be, of course, organizations in the water sector, but also in other sectors who are dealing with water in their process. What we have here is we have all kind of business oriented sessions. We have scientific research sessions. We have matchmaking activities. We have pitch and presentation possibilities. And of course, we have plenary sessions. And what we have is we have several tours to very innovative water technology sites in the Netherlands. And well, as you can see, it's a very international focused event. So that's also maybe an interesting event for you as Canadian organization to go to, not only to meet the Dutch water sector, but also to meet all kind of other players from outside of the Netherlands. And then my last slide, and this is a little bit more for the breakout room, I would say. So I will not go into detail into this, but just to give you a very quick overview of what are the most relevant and pressing topics at the moment in the Netherlands. And this is not only for the Netherlands, a lot of European countries have these topics as focus topics, I would say. So everything what has to do with circular economy in the water sector. So there we talk about water reuse, resource recovery. That's very hot at the moment in the Netherlands and also outside of the Netherlands. And I think it's also not very unfamiliar for Canada. The other one is the removal of micropollutants, and the last one is digitalization. So those topics are very pressing at the moment in the Netherlands, and that's also maybe the topics on which we can cooperate between, well, in this case, the Netherlands or Europe with Canada. That was it.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I'm just going to move into our final two, and if I can remind the speakers to keep it to 5 minutes, just so that we have enough time to actually have a little bit of a chat on our panel. So I will pass it over to Italy.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Italy. Good morning to Canada and good afternoon to my colleagues in Europe. I know that I have to stay in the 5 minutes mandatory time, and so I will try to be very, very quick. Next, please. Next. Yes, just to show you that our legislative scenario is a layered scenario that starts from the European Union, goes through Italian legislation and to regional legislation. Next, please. In Italy, we are divided into 20 regions, and you know, our territory is far far smaller than the Canadian one. And in the northwest, you can see the region Piedmont, which is the region in which we operate. Obviously, we are not only on the other side of the pond, being in Europe, but we are also on the other bank of the river, because we are a utility, and so not a technology provider, but a technology user. Next, please. The company for which I work is SMAT, is the Società Metropolitana Acque of Turin, northwest of Italy, which is more known for wine than for drinking water. But our company is the one that serves about 2.2 million inhabitants, divided into nearly 300 different municipalities. Here you can find some numbers of the company. Next. As you can see, we are a 100% public-owned company. So our shareholders are public, are municipalities, but we work as a joint stock company. Next, please. Yes, as you can see, we are a group of companies with about 1,000 employees, and well, these are few numbers. Next. But the part that I think it's important, next, not only the turnover, but mainly the investment. As you can appreciate, from starting from 2011, we had a stare of investment that shows that we are normally investing from 100 million to 120 million euro each year, and our investments are mainly in technology, infrastructure, and so on. Next, please. Yes, this is a tariff. You can skip it. Anyway, our tariff is normally among the most how to say, most convenient in all Europe. You can see the borough of Turin that ranks under the €2 for cubic meter of the integrated water cycle, which is drinking water, wastewater, and wastewater management, which is far different from the third line of our colleagues in Amsterdam, which is more or less the double. Next. So I have just listed some relevant investment, which are we can go quickly through them, which are all investment in the infrastructure. Next, please. Which is the first is yes, this is again our area with listed the 4 investment in which I was going to speak to you. Please, next. Which is the first is an aqueduct in the Souza Valley, which is about which is a large aqueduct that takes water from the mountain and brings it to the lowland. Next, please. The next is another large aqueduct. You can see that total work value is 160 million euro with for 130,000 serving inhabitants. Next, please. Yes, so we are digging sewer under the belly of the city of Turin. Next, please. And we are refurbishing the drinking water treatment plant, which is the first drinking water treatment plant in Italy. Next, please. These are some hints on our nature-based solution, uptaking water from surface water. Yeah, next, please. And this is one thing that I wanted to go over. It's the research center. 12 years ago, we decided to start a research center in order to bring together the necessities of the utility and the academic. Next, please. So we joined a number of universities, research center, enterprises, industrial partners, and association in order to carry on with all this research. Next, please. We have been, yes, next please. We have been the provider of the space water. We are the official provider of the water that is used by the astronauts in the International Space Station, which orbits over our heads. Next, please. And that's it. More or less, I stayed into the 5 minutes. Sorry to be so in a hurry.
Thank you, Armando. I really appreciate you going fast. And then last but not least, Switzerland, and then we'll jump into the panel right away so we can ask some questions.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to address you all today. I'm David Avery. I work for Switzerland Global Enterprise. And this is just a little image from a presentation or an exhibition which is traveling around the world to talk about Swiss Cleantech, but we can cover that a little after. Next, please. So Switzerland Global Enterprise is essentially the trade and investment promotion organization for Switzerland. We work very closely with very many partners around the world, including our diplomatic locations, for example, in Vancouver, but also obviously our partners within the Switzerland Global Enterprise network, which is located in different parts of the world. For Canada, it is in Toronto. And we are working with federal authorities within Switzerland, with our different Swiss cantons, the regions, if you want, and of course with representatives of industry, the chambers of commerce, different industry associations, and then finally, obviously, companies themselves who are seeking to support. Next, please. Within the context of that, I am responsible for a direct activity looking at Cleantech. And within that context, we see in Switzerland Cleantech as obviously a very important pillar of development, both economically, but also in terms of its contribution to our future goals. And here, what is important is that within the companies we're supporting, probably the most important cluster would be energy. But after that, definitely water is probably the next most important grouping of companies, followed by waste. And I think increasingly we see overlap between the different sectors. Next, please. So Switzerland has a reputation for innovation and has held that position of excellence for a number of years. I long hope it will continue. And that is very much linked to the different centers for research. And I would like at this point to point out maybe just a couple that are very relevant. One would be EMPA in Dübendorf near Zurich, which also houses the EWAG, which is the Federal Research Center for Water. Naturally, many of the universities are also deeply involved, and we can point out, for example, the Geneva Water Hub, who are also very active in different projects. Next, please. So to bring us a little bit more to today's topic, what I wanted to do was just to maybe talk a little bit about the development of water within Switzerland, and also to talk about maybe some of the challenges that are still in front of us, because I think that is a good place to start for the breakout session discussions. So Switzerland, most of the water comes from springs and from groundwater, some of it from surface water. And of course, we are very conscious of the need to maintain and protect those. The responsibility for that in Switzerland is strongly with this association, which represents most of the Swiss communes, municipalities, and a selection of the industry that supports them. One of the things we can see here, which I wanted to point out, was the efforts that have been made to decrease use of water, particularly in a domestic setting. Next, please. If we look at the other end of the pipeline in terms of wastewater, this is represented by a different association, the VSR, and here they also have been working, of course, to develop the network of sewerage and wastewater treatment, with the goal, of course, then to better manage the entire flow. And in that sense, also to improve the quality of water within the lakes and rivers within Switzerland. And I think that has been done very effectively. Nevertheless, more is needed, particularly, shall we say, at an industrial level. So if we look then at maybe some of the ongoing challenges, obviously carbon, organic carbon, and also runoff from fertilizers or other contaminants that are getting into the water stream, then of course there is work to be done. Next, please. Here, technologies are being developed and tested, for example, at ERWAG, as is the recovery of materials. And I think that's something which we will continue to see significant investment and investment that also is at an international level. And talking about international, as was mentioned earlier, there is yet another organization, Swiss Water Partnership, who are very much focused on developing countries, but also on international collaboration in terms of water and access to sanitation. Next, please. Just then to highlight on the right work, research and active areas of research currently, for example, here on removal of nanoplastics from the water system, which is currently being tested and technologies being proven to be useful. And the link that I was talking about in terms of integration. This is a picture of NES. This is a demonstration building. It's fully modular, and hidden under this building is both an energy and a water hub, which is a living lab for development to look at how we can work with resources for the future. Next, please. And of course, as representative of developing export, naturally, I wanted just to highlight briefly some of the different technologies, different levels of technologies that are being developed and how these overlap, starting, for example, with water testing, where this system, BactoSense, is able to look for bacteria and complete that cycle in a 20-minute to rapidly help supporting development of drinking water. The company Drupal, which is very much, I would say, the smart grid of water for the future with their developments. Then, of course, AI and cloud systems to look at aggregation of data and monitoring, metering, which is, of course, the backbone of understanding networks for the future. And finally, to end here with the idea of integration of technologies. This is a folding solar system being used to, if you want, achieve autonomy if when we look at our questions for later in terms of net zero, how does water achieve net zero? Then partly it has to be that the processing of water somehow has to power itself. And here's a question of how we might use that through renewable resources. And of course, then also the question at the end of the system, how might we recover nutrients from the wastewater plants? And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention and hope that we have provided some input that we can discuss further in the breakout sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So quickly, we'll have a little bit of a panel discussion, and then we will take it over to the one-on-one panel, and I'll give a little bit of introduction at the end of the panel to talk about that. But maybe I'll take it off a little bit from where David ended, talking about net zero. And I'd be curious, you talked a little bit about what kind of the greatest opportunities would be for Switzerland and water tech for net zero, but maybe I'll pass it over to Armando. And I'm just curious, in your opinion, what is the biggest opportunity for water tech in the net zero transition?
Well, we are all moving towards that target. So we have to try to find the best viable and best sustainable solutions. For example, in Smart, we purchased 100% of water from renewable source of energy from renewable sources, since energy is our first cost besides personnel. So we have to work on different parts in order to find, from one side, the best solutions, and on the other side, the most sustainable technologies to achieve this result.
Fantastic, thank you. And Stefan, is there something in the Netherlands that you see as the biggest opportunity for water tech in the net zero transition?
Yeah, I think I also mentioned it very briefly in the slide. Everything what has to do, let's say, with water reuse and resource recovery is happening at the moment in the Netherlands. And that's, for example, water reuse is on the municipal side, but also in the industrial side. And I guess, especially the industrial side, there's a lot to be won. So that's a big focus in the Netherlands to make that more net zero. That can be in energy, but also in water. And what is interesting about the Netherlands is that we always are a country where we want to get rid of water as quickly as possible because we are 1/3 below sea level. But now, since a couple of years, we also experienced periods of droughts, and because of that, we now have also to capture water or to reuse water more and more, and especially within industries.
Very interesting. And João, did you want to talk a little bit about Portugal and how you're using water tech in net zero?
Sure. I would join Stefan in saying that increasing the implementation of water reuse projects is also a major challenge here in Portugal, at least when we benchmark ourselves to countries such as Israel, but even our neighbor Spain, which are far more advanced in that respect. I think much of the barriers there are not technological or engineering. Many of them are, what I would say, societal or institutional, namely regulatory and societal in terms of changing people's perceptions. Just to give a curious example, a very fortunate initiative was a couple of years ago, the water utility in Lisbon launched a beer which is brewed out of treated wastewater. It's called Vira, which in Portuguese means to flip, to change. And it's just a marketing gimmick. Of course, the thing is ultra safe, just to change mentalities and to help in public acceptance to that. There's also a lot of ground to cover, not just in irrigation and municipal reuse, but also in industry. But there, I think the progress has been occurring at a faster pace Also because the economics when it comes to industrial operations and business, sometimes the economics just work quite well in that respect. Thank you.
And Gabriek, maybe I'll pass it over to you quickly to talk a little bit about what you see as the biggest opportunity for water tech and the net zero transition here in Canada and especially in the Lower Mainland.
The net zero transition, I would say, the biggest one is always going to be like just first and foremost is using less, right? I mean, it's an energy intensive. We're very fortunate in BC that much of our energy is, because it is renewable, that we're not taking a lot of carbon out in terms of advancing to net zero by using less energy, but nonetheless, you're just in terms of like treating it, moving it, using less is always going to be your biggest gains. And there's lots of things and I would in this one just say like things like data analytics, sensors, et cetera, things that allow you to optimize and be more efficient. I think that we're a little bit behind some of the more water scarce regions where it's really been where that's a real challenge, right? Whereas here it's always been like, well, we have lots and water's cheap, and so there hasn't been that same drive to implement that type of stuff. So I would see that as being a real opportunity.
Thank you, Gabriek. So in all of your presentations, you guys talked a lot about partnerships, and that's why we're here today. And so one question I have for each of you about your country and your organization is, how do you make sure technology adopters like industry and utilities are coming to the table for these discussions and in the decision making? And maybe I'll pass it over to you first, David.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. So, I mean, for us in Switzerland, very much our goal is to work with the different partners, to understand from the different associations what is coming through, what is being worked on, and understanding where it has potential to be used. So for me, that's very much, I think, the primary activity. But it's also, of course, about organizing events where people can see the application and we can bring those innovations to the fore, either through, I don't know, delegations that come to visit, making sure that we are highlighting a lot of emerging technology as well as existing technologies. Not all technology, of course, is ready to be scaled, but of course, unless we know that it's there to be scaled, there is no chance that it will be. And that's so I think, providing a springboard, providing a platform is very much part of the role of that matching and networking, which I think is the core.
Stefan, do you want to talk? The Netherlands has been quite successful in this. Did you want to talk a little bit about your guys' approach?
Yeah, the approach is really, and I think it's for all clusters network who represent the sector, this is really what we do on a daily basis and also should do in my respect. So we want to bring for our members, the technology providers, the clients, the possible end users, the organization, and also that's most of the time the industry with water related challenges to the table. So we as Waterlines, we organize all kind of programs and events for that kind of initiatives. And I think what's also important, not all organizations, and especially not in the water sector, want to, let's say, implement or demonstrate or test new innovations. You also really have to look for the right ones who are, let's say, a little bit more ahead of the curve than the regular one. And we are always looking for those.
Thank you. And just quickly, I'll ask one more question before we jump into the breakout rooms. And if each of you could just keep it to a quick answer, and just what is one learning that you can share from your country that can help Canadian companies be more successful in working with your countries? Maybe I'll start with Armando.
Well, I think that the best suggestion I can give is be more aggressive and find the right mean through the Chamber of Commerce or through other system to make very clear what the new technology can make, because I'm sure that good ideas travel fast. However, we have to make to enlarge as much as possible the networking among users and technology providers. And sometimes a good idea can really be received by some specialist, some technological partner and put into the production of a utility. I do agree with what David said before. We are not all keen to start new experiments, but I'm sure that with the good track record, the good ideas will be surely implemented.
Thank you. Joao.
I mean, I don't feel very comfortable in speculating an answer to such a big question. I would say from what I've interacted over the years with, namely when talking about the Portuguese market, which is a small market, but there are some utilities which are quite innovative and have already some scale of operations. What I would say for particularly for technology companies is to be able to have an approach that you're not talking about the technology, you're talking about fixing a problem. Because if you're talking about a technology, then you're talking with the technical responsibles of utilities, and they'll just immediately mentally box a company, a startup, as just another potential supplier, and will go into that space in their mind. If you're talking about solving a problem and you've got some concrete references to back them up, namely some former clients, then you can talk at a C level, at a CEO or chief operating officer level. I always think that that's the best thing, and it applies to Portugal very much, but I think it equally applies to many other markets. The other thing is to say that we as a partnership, I mean, we do pretty much the same thing as our colleagues do here. I mean, on a daily basis, we're about networking and connecting bridges between different organizations. One of the things that I didn't mention before is, for instance, with our colleagues from the Swiss Water Partnership, the French Water Partnership, the Finnish Water Institute, when it comes to forming consortia for R&D projects, namely funded by the European Union, sometimes what we do is we interact amongst ourselves in helping each other's members in building up those consortia, because having companies from different countries is an added value to that proposition. And to the extent that the European Union and Canada are able to smoothly negotiate the accession of Canadian companies to these EU projects, then I think that's a great opportunity to explore as well.
Stefan and David, if you have anything, 30 seconds to add to that.
Very quickly, don't make your whole master plan for years and years. Go out there as a technology provider and test it in real life, and then along the way you will adapt a little bit and you have to change things. And I think that's also what Armando mentioned, just be active, be in networks, and be out there.
David?
Yeah, I would just add, I think there is a whole lot to be gained at the, if you want the conference, research, collaborative level. And I think that is something where, new technology, I mean, will find its home also in the scientific community. And I think Switzerland as a country tends to be, very open to that sort of dialogue, and I believe that is a very powerful tool that needs to be leveraged.
And Gregory, on the inverse of that, is there kind of any one learning you'd say for Canadian companies going out that you've noticed from Canada?
Actually, I would just echo what they were saying in terms of partnerships and the rest of it. I think Joe said it best, that you need to be talking about a solution, not a technology. That one of the biggest things we've seen is that what really matters is that you need to be coming you need to think of it from the purchaser's perspective. They want to purchase something that's like this. I have this problem. This will fix it. I don't really care about your particular technology. I care about the solution. And so you need to be integrated as part of that. And I think reaching out to some of the folks in these other water networks abroad is to find those partnerships so that you're part of a complete package is key.
Perfect. Thank you all. And I wish we had hours to talk more about. I have a bunch of other water questions, but that's why it's the perfect time to go into the breakout room so that people can ask you guys one-on-one questions. I do quickly just want to mention that from our Water Next, we have Alan Shapiro. And if you guys are looking to kind of learn a little bit more across Canada and what Foresight's doing in water, we have our Water Next, Alan Shapiro. So we'll share his contact information after the session. But now we'll move into the breakout rooms, where you will have the opportunity to interact with the speakers and other participants. We want this to be an interactive session, so make sure to ask questions, participate, and make the event valuable to you. You will be able to self-select your preferred room following the instructions on the screen, which are now up there. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please stay in the main room to be signed into breakout rooms. We appreciate your patience while we accommodate everyone into breakout rooms, and we'll come back about 9:27 so that we have a good amount of time to discuss next steps and closing remarks. So please pick a room with a country that you would like to have a little bit more of a conversation with. So I'll quickly, because we're on the time, just thank everybody for coming today. I especially want to thank the speakers who were able to share on the panel. I want to remind everybody that we have another event tomorrow on ag tech. You can scan right here to register, same time, same place. We'd love to have you here. And again, to the BC government, thank you for all your financial support and the consulates. And as well, want to let you all know that we have a Water Next newsletter that you can subscribe to. Please reach out to us at events@foresightcac.com. And thank you all for your participation. I know I learned a lot in my session, in the breakout session about water and what's going on in the Vancouver space, and hope to see you all tomorrow at the Ag Tech event. Bye.